Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Morning Meditations with Josh and Friends. Today we're wrapping up our study of Samson in part 4 in our larger study of the book of Judges, where we are seeing the nation of Israel sort of rapidly declining over time and the quality of its leaders also declining. And we see that coming to sort of this apex with Samson, who's the answer to the prayer of the Israelites who've been oppressed by the Philistines for 40 years, and God gives them Samson, this guy who doesn't pray. He's got no morals. He really only cares about himself and what he has to gain. He does care about the nation of Israel. As we see, he didn't attack the Judites who arrested him and extradited him to the Philistines. So he's got some sort of loyalty to his people. Really doesn't like the Philistines. And so we pick up in chapter 16 after his arrogant display, after his victory over the Philistines, where he slayed 1,000 of them with the jawbone of a donkey. And he's really thirsty. He's really parched. He kind of like, hey, God, you've given me all this power. Look what I've done. But are you going to let me die here? There's nothing to drink. How about a little water? So he's not giving thanks. He's just gloating about his own selfishness, his pride, his accomplishments, and what he's done, which is only by the power of God, of course. And so it's just this arrogant display, really highlighting his character and how poor it is. So he's free from, hiding out in the hills. He's just slayed 1,000 Philistines. He makes his way down to Gaza. He's partying. He's having a great time. He hooks up with a prostitute. The men of the village hear that he's in town. They try to set up this weak sort of ambush to get him after he comes out in the morning. But he doesn't come out in the morning. He slips out in the middle of the night, catches wind of what's going on. He's got this grand display of his strength when he rips the gates off of the city wall and sort of just carries them off into the distance. And then he makes his way down to the valley of Sorek, where he meets the beautiful and enchanting Delilah. And she sort of has him wrapped around her finger. He falls in love with her, probably more likely in lust with her. And the leaders of the Philistines, the lords, they come to Delilah with a proposition. Delilah, we got a deal for you. If you figure out what the secret of Samson's strength is and how we can overcome it, and you tell us, of course, we're going to give you 1,100 shekels of silver. This is an absurd amount of money, okay? The average Levitical priest who's doing God's work in the tabernacle, in the temple, their place of worship, he's making 10 shekels a year, okay? So the fact that they're offering Delilah 1,100 pieces of silver is absurd for this. But she seems to comply because she enters into this series of attempts to find out what Samson's weakness is. And Samson kind of toys with her a little bit, and he gives her these 3 lies. He tells her these 3 lies of how to overcome his strength, starting with, fresh bowstrings, and then brand new ropes, and then, weaving his hair together to make this certain thing. And each time the Philistines are sort of in waiting and hiding, waiting for him to be bound up, and it fails, right? So she has this display of waterworks. Oh, you don't really love me. You're just mocking me. And how can you say that, you love me? You don't love me, and all this. And Samson's like, oh, great. This again, right? I already had this happen with my wife. Come on now. And she just keeps pestering him and pestering him and pestering him. And that seems to be his weakness, right? It's not as much like cutting the hair off. That obviously is going to lead to his total loss of God's power. But his weakness seems to be nagging women. His wife was nagging him for the answer to the riddle, and he finally gave in. And now Delilah is nagging him about the truth of his source of power and how to overcome it. Finally, he says, if you, all right, I'm a Nazarite, okay? So the deal is I haven't ever cut my hair. I'm supposed to do these things, and that's how I get my power from that, okay? So if you cut my hair off, which he describes earlier as 7 locks of hair. So he's probably got dreadlocks. So if you want to envision what Samson could have looked like. Probably dark complexion, dreadlocks, because he's never cut his hair, so it's probably pretty nappy and gross, actually. But anyway, so Delilah immediately picks up on the truth of this. He's sort of exhausted. He's like, okay, fine, here it is. All right, leave me alone. Can I go to sleep now? So he goes to sleep in her lap. She calls in this dude who comes out of seemingly nowhere, cuts his hair while he's sleeping. Boom, the Philistines are there, and it all sort of comes crashing down. No pun intended, as we're going to see in a minute. But they bind him up, and he can't get out. His strength has left him. Now, why is this symbolic? Because as a Nazirite, the vow to God, remember I told you earlier in the series that people would take a Nazirite vow when they were praying for something, when they were showing great reverence for God, and it was usually for a defined period of time, whatever that was for the person, and then at the end of that period of time that they designated themselves or devoted themselves to prayer or to God, they would cut their hair. All right, they were able to cut their hair and it wouldn't break the vow because the vow was fulfilled. Now, in this case, Samson was given this gift. He never took the vow. And he also didn't end the vow because it was somebody else acting from the outside that cut his hair. But even still, because of his total lack of reverence for God and his selfishness and his pride and all this stuff, it led to his own downfall. His carelessness led to his own downfall. Someone cut his hair. God's blessing leaves Samson. It's sort of the symbolic representation that the vow is over. So now he's in captivity. The Philistines take him, they gouge his eyes out, and they send him into this very humiliating prison sentence where he's grinding wheat in the mill of the prison, which is a woman's job. So fittingly, they take the most daring, the strongest warrior maybe ever, and they're making him do this menial task that really should belong to a woman, and they get great entertainment out of this. In fact, everybody is sort of coming together into this giant party where they're celebrating their victory. They finally have Samson. They're gonna do him in, and they call him forth, like all the lords and the politicians and the people. There's like 3,000 people all gathered together, and they're worshiping their god Dagon. And they're saying, oh yeah, praise Dagon, right? This guy, our God, woohoo! He finally delivered our enemy to us. Victory is ours because of you, Dagon. You're the God of gods. You're awesome. We love you. And they're praising God. Not unlike the Israelites have praised God in the past for delivering the enemies of the Israelites into their hand. So we see sort of this correlation between these tribal peoples in the Transjordan region and how they viewed worship and God, their gods. And so it's sort of just an interesting note there. Anyway, back to the story. They are drinking, they're partying, they're having a great time, they're worshiping, they're feeling great, and they say, hey, yeah, Samson, yeah, remember that? Call that guy in here. He's going to entertain us. He's going to, make him put on a show for us. So they drag him out of prison, and the guy who's guiding him, because remember he's blind, brings him into this sort of show to entertain. And Samson says, hey, let me rest against the pillar that the whole house is resting on. I need to rest for a second. So assumingly that guy does that, he leads him to the pillar, sort of a weight-bearing pillar. And Samson humbles himself. He cries out to the Lord and he says, God, if you just give me my strength back, give me the strength this one last time, and I'm going to take care of all these cats for you. I'm going to do this once and for all. In fact, you can take me too. I just want to end it. But before I go, let me get my vengeance on these Philistines for what they've done to me, for taking my eyes. So it seems like it's a request to God where he's crying out, but in actuality, it's a selfish motive. He's selfishly saying to God, Give me back the strength that you once gave me so I can extract revenge on these Philistines who've wronged me. They've taken my eyes, so me, mine. It's all about Samson. And we know that the Philistines are one of the tribes that should have been driven out when the Canaanites, when the people entered the land of Canaan, the Israelites came in, but they didn't do that, right? So even though Samson is this really imperfect judge, this really imperfect leader, God still uses Samson to accomplish God's objective, which is to drive out these people from the land that God gave to the Israelites. So that happens, all right? He pushes the pillars over, the whole building comes crashing down, kills 3,000 people, men and women, which is more than the collective amount of people that he killed before he was in captivity. So he's killing thousands of Philistines. The point is God can use anybody to accomplish God's objectives. God uses the enemies of the Israelites to bring the Israelites back to the recognition that they need God, that they're God's people, and that they've strayed away from God. God's going to use Babylon later on. He's going to use the Roman Empire later on, all these enemies of the Jewish people, to bring back this recognition that the people need God, because without God, they stray so far that they end up killing themselves, right? Because of their carelessness, just like Samson, it leads to their demise. And there, my friends, is the lesson for us. If we stray away from God in our lives, or we become arrogant, or things become all about us and what we can do and how we've done this and we've done that, while using God's blessings to accomplish the things that we've accomplished, if we're not rightly tuned towards God and we don't have that relationship where our being and God's being sort of intermingle and become one, that unification, which is part of the sanctification journey of why we're growing in our faith and our spirituality and learning to be more in tune with that, then it leads to our demise. And that's kind of all of it in a nutshell. So I hope you've enjoyed the study of Samson. If you were one of the 8 that watched my previous rendition of this, my apologies for the gratuitous use of the word It was so bad I had to remake it. So if you haven't seen that, you're gonna get this one. I hope you like it. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you enjoy the service that we have planned for you for Sunday. And next Sunday, we pick up with our regular worship schedule, 9:45 contemporary service, and then the 8:30 and 11 o'clock service, traditional, with Pastor Suzanne. And that's it, guys. So have a great weekend. Stay dry. Go to the beach. Have fun. I love you. And I'll see you Monday. Bye.